Milly Molly Mandy spends a penny. Once upon a time, Milly Molly Mandy found a penny in the pocket of an old coat. Milly Molly Mandy felt very rich indeed. She thought of all the things she could buy with it, and there were so many she did not know which to choose. That is the worst of a penny. So Milly Molly Mandy asked everybody with whom she lived in the nice white cottage with the thatch roof what they would do with it if they were her. "Put it in the bank," said Grandpa promptly. He was making up accounts. Milly Molly Mandy thought that a wise idea. "Buy a skein of rainbow wool and learn to knit," said Grandma, who was knitting by the kitchen door. Milly Molly Mandy thought that a good idea. "Buy some seeds and grow mustard and cress," said Father, who was gardening. Milly Molly Mandy thought that quite a good idea. "Buy a little patty pan and make a cake in it," said Mother, who was cooking. Milly Molly Mandy thought that a very good idea. "Save it up until you get 3, and I'll let you buy a baby duckling with them," said Uncle, who was scooping out corn for his chickens. Milly Molly Mandy thought that an excellent idea. "Get some sweets," said Auntie, who was very busy sewing and did not want to be interrupted. Milly Molly Mandy thought that a very pleasant idea. Then she went to her own little corner of the garden for a think, for she still could not make up her mind which of all those nice things to do. She thought and thought for a long time. And then what do you think she bought? Some mustard and cress seeds, which she planted in a shallow box of earth and stood in a nice warm place by the tool shed. She watered it every day and shaded it if the sun were too hot, and at last the little seeds grew into a lovely clump of fresh green mustard and cress that made you quite long for some bread and butter to eat it with. When it was ready to cut, Milly Molly Mandy went to Mrs. Moggs, their neighbour down the road, who sometimes had summer visitors. "Mrs. Moggs," said Milly Molly Mandy, "if you should want some mustard and cress for your visitors' tea, I have some to sell. It's very good and quite cheap." "Why, Milly Molly Mandy," said Mrs. Moggs, "that's exactly what I'm wanting. Is it ready for cutting now?" So Milly Molly Mandy ran home and borrowed a pair of scissors and a little basket, and she snipped that lovely clump of fresh green mustard and cress. All but a tiny bit for her own tea, and carried it to Mrs. Moggs. And Mrs. Moggs gave her 2 pence for it. So Milly Molly Mandy had done one of the nice things and spent her penny, and now she had 2 pence. Then Milly Molly Mandy took one of the pennies to the little village shop and bought a skein of beautiful rainbow wool. "Grandma," she said when she got home, "please will you teach me to knit a kettle holder?" So Grandma found some knitting needles and showed Milly Molly Mandy how to knit. And though it had to be undone several times at first, Milly Molly Mandy really did knit quite a nice little kettle holder, and there was just enough wool for it. When she had put a loop in one corner to hang it up by, she went to Mother, who was just putting the potatoes on to boil. "Mother," said Milly Molly Mandy, "would you think this kettle holder worth a penny?" "Why, Milly Molly Mandy," said Mother, "that is exactly what I am wanting, for my old one is all worn out." "But the penny only pays for the wool, so you are making me a present of all your trouble." And Mother gave Milly Molly Mandy a penny and a kiss, and Milly Molly Mandy felt well paid. So Milly Molly Mandy had done another of the nice things, had spent her penny and learnt to knit, and still she had her penny. Should we have a look at the picture before we go on? Oopsie. This is Milly Molly Mandy finding a penny in an old coat pocket. You see Mother in the kitchen cooking, baking. And everybody's hats and coats and boots and shoes. Then Milly Molly Mandy took her penny down to the little village shop and bought a shiny tin patty pan. And next baking day, Mother let her make a little cake in the patty pan and put it in the oven. And it was such a beautiful little cake and so nicely browned that it seemed almost too good to eat. Milly Molly Mandy put it outside on the windowsill to cool. Presently along came a lady cyclist, and as it was a very hot day, she stopped at the nice white cottage with the thatched roof and asked Milly Molly's Mandy mother if she could have a glass of milk. And while she was drinking it, she saw the little cake on the windowsill, and the little cake looked so good that the lady cyclist felt hungry and asked if she could have that too. Milly Molly Mandy's mother looked at Milly Molly Mandy, and Milly Molly Mandy gave a little gulp and said, "Yes." And the lady cyclist ate up the little patty cake, and she did enjoy it. When she had gone, Milly Molly Mandy's mother took up the pennies the lady cyclist had put on the table for the milk and the cake, and she gave one to Milly Molly Mandy because it was her cake. So Milly Molly Mandy had done yet another of the nice things and spent her penny, but still she had her penny. And then Milly Molly Mandy took her penny down to the little village shop and bought some sweets. Lovely big anisey balls that change colour as you sucked them. She would not eat one till she got home, and then gave one to Grandpa, and one to Grandma, and one to Father, and one to Mother, and one to Uncle, and one to Auntie. And then she found there were 6 for herself. So she ate them, and they were very nice. So Milly Molly Mandy had done another of the nice things and spent her penny, but she still had 1 penny from the mustard and cress. Then she went to Grandpa and asked him please to put it in the bank for her. And then she went to Uncle. "Uncle," said Milly Molly Mandy, "I've done everything with my penny that everybody said but you. And though I can't buy a little baby duckling yet, I've got a penny saved towards it in the bank." And it was not very long before Milly Molly Mandy had saved up to 3pence. And then Uncle let her have a little yellow baby duckling all for her own.